Hey, small business heroes. Welcome back to Small Business PR, where we make PR and marketing super accessible for the everyday small business underdog. Now, I'm so excited to have my new friend, Shannon McKinstrie here. You probably have seen her on the interwebs. She's got a lot of followers, y'all. I'm talking about 270,000 organic followers on Instagram. And even if you have 5 or 50, she is going to reveal what's working right now because she has seen the evolution of social media. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
So you're what I call one of the Instagram OGs. You have seen it through all. So can you tell us really quickly about yourself, how long you've been on Instagram? How long did it take for you to grow to nearly 300,000 followers?
Yeah, no, I love this because there's a lot of people that have been doing what I do for less time with more followers. And I'm like, I'm here for the long haul. It's been a long journey. A lot of people have rapid success. I haven't, but I think that's also why I love it and why I love my community so much, because we've really gotten to bond over the years. So I started showing up on Instagram consistently, I would say 2018, because I was growing so many businesses. And I was like, should I do this for myself? Maybe I should show my own business some love. And that's when I started really kind of coming up with a content strategy and taking it seriously. So 2018 was around the time I started really focusing and posting consistently, like 4 times a week. And it's just grown pretty consistent over the years. And Reels are what really helped me. It was really the big launch pad for the major growth. I was managing Instagram accounts before Reels existed, before even stories were a thing. So I've been around for a long time. I've seen a lot of changes, but I always like to tell people Instagram is still very much a storytelling app. So not to be too intimidated by all the changes, and hopefully I can help you with that today.
Yeah, I think that the reason why I wanted to keep this conversation super niche and specific to what's no longer working, because we get so much advice from this guru and that expert, and it gets so overwhelming. And so I want to hear from you, because I really do think that you're someone who really can see the landscape from all the years you've been in it. You're not just another influencer. So just tell us really quickly, at the time of recording, we're at 2025, what's working now that maybe it was not working before? What's working before that's no longer working now? What should we be doing?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Yeah. So, and it's kind of fun. I've been talking about this for a while now, probably about 1.5 years. I started seeing this big shift because I kind of got sick of it, really. Like you were saying, it's like social media. We don't really own our platforms. I started kind of getting discouraged in 2020 when all of a sudden everyone was jumping on the Reels train. And again, like you said, a lot of advice out there. And a lot of it took the human out of social media. A lot of the advice out there just made it very business heavy, which was great. That worked, right? Really hooky, grabby, kind of sleazy-ish, you could say, clickbaity type of content. And that was getting a lot of people a lot of growth. But what it did was really take the human out, right? A lot of people was like, who is the person behind this account? What's even going on? Who are they besides what they do? And I think a lot of people were telling people, don't talk about yourself at all. Don't da-da-da-da. And I think for a little time that worked. Now we're going back. We're back to following the journey of a human being. We're back to, I don't want to hear just a tip of a good email subject line, for instance. I want to know why. What's your perspective? Why are you telling me I should try this email subject line? Or why should I pitch myself to this podcast? Right? Personal experiences. So it's like the tips that we used to share that you could find on Google that ChatGPT can tell you. It's like, no, but why? So again, for example, the example I always give people is as a social media strategist and manager, I could say, here's a hook to use. Why do they care? Because I would say this hook got my client 40,000 followers or whatever it is, right? So it kind of builds that trustworthy, obviously it's the magic of all the curiosity, but it brings back the storytelling aspect of no, this worked for me and here's the story behind it. And that is the biggest shift I've seen. And even the bloggers, the influencers, I've seen it with them too. They're like, here's what I'm looking forward to wearing this spring. Here's what I found at Walmart. And when you see what's doing well on Instagram and the fact that this big shift of less how to, more of how it's really, really powerful. And I think Reels are the big reason for that, because we can tell a story in the video and in the caption, bring it back home and make the audience the hero. And that's where we really bring in that sales copy and things like that. So that's the biggest shift I've seen is if you're giving a tip or even sharing, I spoke at this thing, I was on this podcast. We want that. We want to get back to who am I following and why do I want to give them my money? What's the story behind you and all that good stuff.
Ooh, so we have a lot of product founders in our community. So a light bulb just went off. So let's say if I make skincare, instead of 3 reasons why you need to buy my botanical whatever serum, it could be how I, as a skincare enthusiast, prep my skin for winter. or something like that?
Yes. And actually that's perfect because a lot of the content I follow, skincare, makeup, hair, because, I'm in my 40s now. So I'm like, ooh, we got to switch some things around. So I tell people, I'm like, again, it's great for people that sell products because we want to know why you developed the product, what people are buying, what's flying off the shelves, what you're shipping out the most of. I love the reels where they go pack this. I'm obsessed with these. They say something like, pack a $100 order for a customer in Phoenix or whatever. There's one girl that does this beautifully. She sells just stationery, like papers, pens, and she's now got all these followers, she does all these cool reels about how many customers she started with, who she has now. But she'll say pack a $10 order with me, pack a $1,000 order with me. And it just brings you in behind the scenes. So instead of here's a pen and paper to buy, it's like, it gives that FOMO. And you also fall in love with the business owner and you want to root them on. And at the end of the day, we do. I know social media, there's a lot of dark places there, but I'd like to see the beauty in it. And I think when you couple this beautiful thing of like, here's what I sell and here's who I am. And I always joke, like, this is why we watch Shark Tank, right? We're like, I've bought so much stuff off Shark Tank just because I'm I like the person. And then you end up loving the products too.
Yeah. Okay. So really quick recap. We've switched from how to how I. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of how I, we're obviously not selling the product. So then do we in the caption say, here's how I pack an order. And by the way, we have this, or you don't even sell at all?
No, I love this question. Yes. And you'll see it as you scroll. A lot of times now, I think we were so scared to ask for the sale back in the day, or it felt kind of sleazy. Right now, if you look at any of these big time products or whatever, the first line of the caption is typically comment blank for the link. So if you know this, again, if you're more so giving them an experience of packing an order, you probably wouldn't say comment blank, but you could say, cannot wait for Susie in North Carolina to get da, da, da. And then you could say, by the way, you can shop everything we sell in my bio, or if you want to use ManyChat features, something like that. Now, if you're showing a specific product, like, oh my gosh, look what just launched, look what just arrived. If it's a specific thing that they can literally just go comment something, get the link, you can start the caption with comment. And I tell everyone, and this was so true, I did it too. It was like, we had our piece of content that was meant to sell, our piece of content that was meant to grow, our piece of content that was meant to nurture. Now it's like, you can do all of it. Like use the reel to grow, nurture, whatever it is, use the caption to convert. Whether it's a follower, a sale, I use my captions to sell big time.
Yeah, I think the reason why it became so complex is because there's all these formulas.
Yeah.
Like, do the how to on Monday, and then so it becomes so specific and complex that people are thinking about it in such a formulaic way and they just get overwhelmed. And I love what you said is like, don't overthink it. It's not like 30 versus 50%. Like just make all of your content in one so that you are taking the behind the scenes. So do you think that all of our content should switch to this kind of behind the scenes and we should just not do any kind of salesy content or like benefits and features anymore?
No, I would definitely do a mix. And again, I do a lot of different content. I'll do, behind the scenes of my journey, here I am speaking at this event and I'll go look and I'm like, oh my gosh, people followed me off of that, which, maybe not as many as would follow my account because of a tip I share, but it still leads to a little bit of moving the needle. So I talk a lot about them. Call it 4 H's because what I try to do with my content is less about, is this going to grow? Is this going to convert? Whatever. Cause I'm like, all of my content does all 3 all the time. It's leading to all 3 of these. I base the content I'm creating off of how I want my people to feel. So if I'm like, okay, I feel like my people need a warm hug today, I'll create something that makes them feel. And I'm like, okay, I did that yesterday. And it's going crazy. And again, it's like that content that I create that I say something that they are scared to say and that makes them feel seen and heard. And I call that my heard content. That leads to followers, it leads to shares, but it's not like I'm sharing a tip because I know a lot of people think value. And I'm like, everything you share is valuable if you got heart and story or whatever behind it. And then in the caption, I'll use it to say, just follow me or something like that. And again, this is, like you said, it doesn't have to be rigid. You could share funny content every day. That's fine. But the next day I'll usually share something, my second H is helpful. And this is another thing I will say that this is another big shift to take away is I would look at my captions 5 years ago and it's almost a masterclass. Every piece of content. I'm like, do this, do that, da, da, da. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, Shannon, we overwhelm people with our content easily because we're seeing so much now. So with the helpful pieces, I find one simple thing they can pretty much implement that day. So it's not like this huge like overhaul of their Instagram account or something like that. So anything helpful. And then the third H is humor, making them feel, so the helpful content makes them feel capable. They're like, oh, I can do that. And then the third H is humor, and it just makes them laugh. So it just makes them like happy and connect with me. And then the fourth is happenings, and that's that behind the scenes. So talking about my life as a mom, or I was on this podcast that, was awesome and things like that. So, but I tell people all the time, you don't have to share humorous if you don't want to. If that's not your thing, don't, right? There's no rules, but just find that magic content that you enjoy creating and that your people like consuming. But I do think it's a good mix. Definitely the helpful and the herd seem to be what people gravitate to the most and find easiest to create. So
yeah, so that's actually a light bulb just went off. If I'm looking at my content, and I experienced this shift as well, where I was doing a lot of the tips to get PR, and like it just never grew my content. Like nobody saw it. But what I'm doing now is so much humor. So I take the best memes from like dogs and people like tripping on their barbecue, and like those go crazy. And the helpful ones actually not so much. And so I think the reason why the helpful ones are not landing is because you just taught me right now that if you are going to do helpful content, then give them one piece of information, not like a whole thing in a pod. So that really helped me. Thank you so much.
Yay.
What is something else? Yeah, I'm gonna use that actually. I should take your program. So what's another thing that's working right now or not working anymore?
The other thing that's working right now is the same thing that's always worked. And it's so funny. I saw it on TikTok all of a sudden. I mean, that's a totally different platform, different beast. But everyone's like, all the TikTok coaches, growth coaches are like, all right, guys, here's what's working now. You need to engage. You need to comment. I'm like, what? Like, this has always been a tactic. So I like to tell this to people because a lot of my clients, even if I'm holding their hand, I'm like, hit post. They get paralyzed. Like so many people are I'm like, if there is nothing you do today, well, and this would be a fourth tip, but post on stories, just anything behind the scenes, right? Like it goes away. So if you feel like it's cringe, who cares? But the biggest thing is just leave a comment somewhere. I think people have lost the art of being social on social. So a lot of people get intimidated. I'm like, well, you know how to comment on a post. Everyone knows how to comment on a post. That's not hard. And it's so funny because I'll sometimes just comment on something random that I find funny. Like maybe an author put out a funny reel that just made me laugh. That's not my niche. I will comment on it. And all of a sudden I've got like 500 likes, people commenting under my comment. And I know it's leading to people checking out my profile. Did they follow? I don't know. There's not really a metric for that yet, but I'm sure they did. So even me as someone who the people I want to see my content are people who are trying to grow and sell on Instagram and not burn out and all that stuff. I still get people that will say, oh, I saw your comment on so-and-so's post. So it's crazy. We live in the comment section. We love the comment section. And a lot of times before we leave a comment, we want to see what other people are commenting just to make sure, am I reading the room right? Like, or was my question answered? So me, if I go comment on your stuff, right? And I go, oh, Gloria, great tip. I can't wait to check out the podcast. Someone might see that and just go, click on me, go to my profile, check me out. You just never know. So even though that's not really a content type of way to grow, it does help you grow. And it also sees who you're connected to. So maybe your goal is to speak at some conference. You know, the people that are speaking there, be in their comment section. Comment. You sell a product. What other products do you know your people are buying? Where are they shopping? Comment on there. And actually what's really interesting, because I think people got too good to comment, and I don't want to say it like that, but all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, I've got reels. They're getting 1 million views. I don't need to engage anymore. And then all these people that grew really fast, their connection with their audiences tanked because they stopped engaging. And I'm like, I never stopped. Like I'm there to connect with people. And anyway, long story, strategically think of where to follow or where to comment. I work with a lot of local businesses. So the brewery, for instance, that I work with, I'm like, you guys need to be commenting on the restaurants, the hair salon, I don't know, wherever in your area that you know they've driven by the brewery, they just haven't gone in. Again, you are a home organizer. Comment on the home edit. They can't keep up with all their comments. Maybe you say, oh my gosh, I do the same thing for my clients. They go, look, you're in Boise, they're in Idaho, connection. You never know. So it sounds very OG Instagram, but that is something I literally did in 2018 to grow my clients because we didn't have reels. I would just comment like crazy on not competitors, but like people that I knew their people were following them.
Yeah, so especially like a media magazine too. Like if I'm in beauty, I'm going to follow Refinery 29, or if I make something, I'm going to comment on New York Times Wirecutter. So that's perfect.
Yes. And honestly, it's crazy. TikTok, if you go to TikTok, again, totally different beast. I'm not a TikTok coach at all, but I just like seeing what I observe. Like when some TikToks are going crazy and they could have nothing to do with the business at all. Maybe it's like a mom and a kid and it's a funny video. You'll see Pepsi commenting. You'll see Barnes and Noble commenting, Home Goods commenting. I mean, they are in Taco Bell. And then everyone under there is like, oh, Taco Bell, what are you doing here? And they go back and forth. And I'm telling you, it's like, the psychology behind it, right? But it's like, you feel connected. It's like, oh, even though these products don't feel like there's a person behind them, it gives the product, the restaurant, the store a personality. And so it's just interesting.
So good. You know, at the time of recording, White Lotus just had their season finale. I bet if I commented on that, like HBO, you know, like that's a great way.
Yes. And you know, what's funny? What was my TikTok about? Again, TikTok's my playground. I just put stuff up there, and Peacock wrote on my TikTok. And I was like, oh my gosh, Peacock, what's up? You know, and it had nothing to do with their network. I'm trying to remember now what my TikTok was about. And it wasn't even viral. It didn't even go viral, but they saw it, commented, because they know, they're smart. They know we're in the comment section. So it's just a cool way to kind of almost, maybe if you're like, I need a break, content, I'm burning out, make sure your bio is optimized, put up some stories every day so they know you're around and you live, like you're an active account. You haven't posted in a long time. The comment you leave could lead to someone on your profile clicking your website and buying your stuff. You just never know. You never know. Yeah. If you're in makeup, comment on Sephora. Comment on the influencers. It's just kind of an old school way to grow, but it still works and everyone's acting. It's like, it's this epiphany. I'm like, you guys, this is like an original way to be social on social.
And it's absolutely validating because I think that we took the fun out of social. It's all about tips and authority, and people don't want to be on Instagram to be lectured to. And I think that once I did start posting funny dog memes, that's when my account grew. And I actually had a CMO that I hired to do my social media, and she was unable to grow it because it was just a lot of that kind of content, again, value and tips. So I love how you gave us permission to just like not always be so literal on our message and not talk about what we do. And then what's the last thing that you want to share with us?
Yeah. And one thing that you guys can go do today that is, you know, super simple is just talk to the camera like you're on Instagram stories. And I know that scares everyone because, you know, we think we need this like fancy background, all this stuff. I saw it happening on TikTok about a year and a half ago. It's just every viral video of someone talking, they're literally just sharing a hot take. And it doesn't have to be super controversial because I know me, if I post something controversial and people start being mean, I'm going to cry. So I am too sensitive to post a lot of that stuff. But it could be just something like, does anyone else think, or it could be about White Lotus. It could literally be like, you guys, have you ever been in a friend group like those 3 girls? And just be like, I have a story. Whatever it is, just the more, and this is going to be really hard for a lot of people, the more off the cuff, and it feels like this just happened or something happened while you were shopping at Walmart and you're like, oh my gosh, da da da. We love to feel like we're in your world. And that's why I tell everyone I wouldn't have a business without Instagram stories. Like that is where my people connect. I share everything. I share all sorts of stuff, even if I'm like, well, people think this is funny. They do. Most Instagram story comments I get are when I'm, you know, something about our cats or something that happened that day with my daughter. You know, we connect over all sorts of things. But if you just pick up the camera and talk, and it can be something that you just had, like you just had an epiphany with a client, or you heard something on a podcast that you're like, oh my gosh, I just heard this quote. I got to tell you guys. And then segue it into business if you can. But like I said, it could literally be about White Lotus. And then in the caption, you could be like, by the way, if, you know, comment below. Also, if we haven't met, hi, I'm in PR and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't always have to be about business all the time. It should obviously be, a lot of your content should convert and, you know, make sure people know what you do and what you specialize in. But sometimes it can just be whatever we bond over. I've shared so many silly reels, like us at the beach, like about my beach sandwich. It went crazy viral. And I think on TikTok, it had like 7 million views, like just crazy.
Wow.
But even though it had nothing to do with my business, we're going to go to someone's bio, look at their profile before we hit follow. So if they want to, they're like, oh, that was really funny. And oh, she does Instagram. Oh, she lives in North Carolina. They'll send me a DM. It's just crazy how it works. And I think the more we think about how we use Instagram and what content we like connect to and create kind of like that. And I find a lot of people right now are just loving the raw talk to the camera. Like in the moment,
I love it.
Da, 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 and you can put a little hook over your head that kind of, what I tell people is those first 3 seconds, obviously very important. But if you have a hook over your head, that kind of gives a brief summary of what you're about to talk about. My thoughts on like text, friend group, trauma. I don't write something like that. Yeah. Or 3 ways too. That's where that hook can be kind of old school basic hook over your head. Because it just grabs them and they go, oh, okay, I want to hear what she has to say. And then very conversational. And the more it feels conversational, like you're just yapping on FaceTime with a friend, or again, Instagram stories where it doesn't feel like we're being lectured to. Just, you said it perfectly.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I see
So
going crazy on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn even. I see the videos over there getting more casual, which is crazy. So yeah, that's why I keep telling everyone, I'm like, for about a year and a half, 2 years now, I've been like, we're going back. We're going back to humans. We're going back to just storytelling, back to non-intimidating content. And, again, that could change in a year. That's what's working right now.
Yeah. But it's also making it easier because it's very much kind of an invitation to come as you are and not having to put up a front.
I love that. Yes.
Let's talk about stories real quick before we hop off. So I actually have a problem with my stories because, I have, there's people with a lot less followers than me, but they get like 500 views on their stories. I'm realizing that my stories are not performing as well as they could. So what's your recommendation on that?
I'm a big stories fan. Like I said, I wouldn't have a business without it. That's where I really convert a lot. If your views are down, it is a hack. Not every tactic works. Not every hack works. This one does. Go completely dark. So your stories have officially expired. And I actually did this yesterday because usually by the weekend, I'm like, okay, I need to reset. My story views are like half of what they normally are or even worse. Let them expire. And that next story you post will be like quadruple the views you normally get. But it's more just like kind of how we use the app. We typically after 3 or so stories fall off. So if you want to give it a reset, and again, when things aren't getting as many views and interactions, Instagram pushes it down and just demotes it in a way. But again, it's not that your stories are boring, right? I always tell everyone, I'm like, it's just how we use it. So that's a fun tactic to do. And some people do it every day. They let their stories expire. And maybe they expire at like 8 a.m. At 8:30, they throw up a photo with a link and whatever their goal is of the day. I always say that first story, those first 2 to 3 stories are so important. So front load those, make sure those have like new podcast dropped, second story. Here's what I'm up to today. By the way, if you want to join my whatever, here it is, right? Like pack in what you can in those first 2 to 3. And after 2 to 3 every day, that's when I start sharing like, all right, going to the grocery store, look, found this, watching White Lotus, stuff like that. I just make sure those first 3 move the needle. But yeah, when the views are low, completely expire. And there are a lot of people that only share 1 story a day and they let it expire every day. So that's a strategy too. But I'm someone that can't only post once a day on stories. I love them so much, but that's a great tactic, especially for people who just don't have the time.
Yeah. And expire it's 24 hours, right?
Yes. So literally if you posted a story at 8 a.m., and that can be your thing every day. And then at 8:01, it's gone. And then at 8:05, something like that. So
yeah, is it very different than what you post on your feed? Like, should you repost it or you turn your stories in, or there's no correlation between the two?
Yeah. If I actually did it today, my first story was, hi, here's what I did Sunday with my, here's what we did today. My next story was, in case you missed this reel on Saturday. Because I know a lot of people just go dark. A lot of people that follow me, especially, they're like, I go dark on Saturdays or Sundays. So I'll be like, here it is. And then I'll share that reel. But in the reel, so that was story 2 of my morning. Under it is like, oh, by the way, this prompt is in the Reels lab. And I put the link. So to make sure okay, they can go watch the reel if they want, or they can just hop into the Reels lab right now. So that's what I mean. I'm like, I try to not pack too much in it, like too many call to actions. But what is your goal right now? You need more sales? Go dark. That first story, the best thing is to make it a photo. For some reason, photos, just people stick around longer. I would do a photo and talk about whatever it is. Make sure you're using that strong sales copy, little storytelling if you need to, and put that there. Whatever your main goal is, first story.
Awesome. Well, obviously we can go on and on about all the tips, but you've given us some really, really good things about what's working. And just in the 20 or 30 minutes, I've realized that I need to kind of do a sweep of my social media too. Anything else you want to leave us with before we hop off?
Yeah, I think you said it best. Like, let's have fun again. If you're not having fun, people feel it. And I think that's why I've stayed in the game so long and not burnt. I've seen a lot of people in my industry just stop. It makes me sad because I'm like, they got caught up in the craziness, and I've just always had fun. But again, not everyone enjoys creating content, but you just find that method that works for you. And if you only want to do pictures and static posts, that's fine too. Like, what you just make it work for you. And make sure you're showing up for your people and letting us in your world, and you'll be just fine.
Is there anything that we should just avoid doing that's like old advice, definitely not working anymore?
Well, I do think the pressure of posting every day, like, throw that out the window. I have reels from 6 months ago still getting me followers and likes and comments. So if that's burning you out, throw that out the window. Beyond unnecessary to post every day.
So how can people find you and get more into your world? I mean, I want to know what you bought at Trader Joe's yesterday. Tell us.
I share it all. Yeah, I'm Shannon McKinstrie on Instagram. Same. I'm on LinkedIn a lot too. Threads. I'm a lot of places. I always tell people, you don't have to be everywhere. I'm pretty much everywhere. And then my website's the same, shannonmckinstrie.com.
Love it. And you know, one thing I'd love to do is once our members get their PR wins, like use that as social media. It's ultimate credibility.
I love that.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
If you know of anyone who can benefit from this episode, by the way, thank you listeners for being here. Please tell them about it. And if you love this episode and other episodes, feel free to give me a rating and review so that more people can find out about it. Thanks for listening.